Well, if you don't know me by now, I'm always searching. And I'm always searching for trying to find that perfect timing of when Yahuwah and Yahushua will call us home. I want to share with you what I've recently found and see what you think. Could this be it? As I've shared with you my findings on the Enochian calendar, being God's calendar, how that corresponds to the timing now. This will come into play when I do this current study, because I'm continuing to follow it. And so I'm showing that the Feast of Unleavened Bread ended on April 11th, which would have been the 21st day on the Enochian calendar. Now, April 13th, 14th, and 15th seem to be very interesting dates to look at and would match on the Enochian calendar with the 23rd, 24th, and 25th days of the first month. And so, in correlating these next few days to past biblical history, I think you're going to be astonished to find some neat correlations that would be fitting to being called home. Now, in one of my past studies, I informed you that the Feast of Unleavened Bread wouldn't be a time in which the Feast of Firstfruits and the counting of the Feast of Weeks would be able to start because of the instruction to not eat leavened bread during that time. Or if you remember, one of the instructions in Leviticus 23 for the Feast of Firstfruits is that ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day that you have brought an offering unto your God. But in the instructions for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it says that you shall be eating unleavened bread. Although there was also other reasons why the Feast of Firstfruits couldn't start during the timing of the Feast of Unleavened Breads, that was the one that I wanted to mostly remind you about. Basically, the two feasts contradict each other because of this, and thus the first timing of Firstfruits would need to be after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so here we are, pondering after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when does the Feast of Firstfruits actually begin? And as I found out on my study on the Feast of Firstfruits and Feast of Weeks, the search for the truth led me to day 25 on the Enochian calendar of the first month, as being the start of the Feast of Firstfruits and the Feast of Weeks. And if we remember a little bit of that study, the words of touch me not in John 20, that Yahushua hadn't ascended to his Father yet. But then in John 20:19, it says, then the same day at evening, which didn't mean that Sunday, it just meant a Sunday, the first day of the week. He came and stood in the midst of them. Now, at that time, they were reminded that they were told to go to Galilee. Now, during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that was a time when they weren't supposed to be traveling. So it would have needed to be after that time that they headed to Galilee. And the 11 did go to Galilee. To the mountain where he had appointed them. And so, day 25 on the Enochian calendar, corresponding with April 15th on the Gregorian calendar, would be the day in which the first fruit was seen by the disciples in Galilee, where he had sent them to meet him. And so this would be the timing of the sheaf of the first fruit being with, being noticed, being touched. And that would be the day after the true Sabbath day. So we are considered the barley harvest. At the end of the 50 days is the wheat harvest. So what else do we find historically that could be a good correlation to us leaving? On day 23, we're told that Moses was told to stretch out his hand. And this stretching out of his hand resulted in the parting of the Red Sea on the night of the 23rd day of the first month, which would actually this year be again on April 13th. Now, Sister Sherry has said that space is the abyss. The Hebrews used a different word for abyss there, and it's space. It's not hell under the earth, it's space. And it just so happens that the definition for abyss, the abyssal zone, or, I'm not even going to try that word. It's a layer of the pelagic zone of the ocean. Abyss derives from the Greek word meaning bottomless. And so wouldn't it be fitting that if we were to leave through space, the abyss, that is kind of like a Red Sea, a sea of blood, a sea of crashing ships due to the Orgo, aliens dying. I'm sure you must be also wondering how I've been led to this time of the crossing of the Red Sea. So I want to show you specifically, step by step, how I came to this date. And it was the 15th day of the first month that the Israelites actually escaped Egypt. And in Exodus 13:4 it says, "This day came ye out in the month of Abib." Now in the Bible, things seem to be very vague on trying to follow the days of when things happen. But the book of Jasher helps us out here. And the book of Jasher, chapter 81:8 says, "On the third day, after the Egyptians had buried their firstborn, many men rose up from Egypt and went after Israel to make them return to Egypt." So this third day would be 15th, 16th, 17th day of the first month on the Enochian calendar. Just so happens that as they rose up to go after them, that's also the day that Yahushua rose up from the dead. Now, continuing on in the book of Jasher, verse 14, same chapter, it says, "Now therefore this makes 5 days since you went. Why not you return to your masters?" And that's when the Egyptians caught up initially with the Israelites. So 5 days would have gone from 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th to the 19th day. Thus, from the 17th day to the 19th day would be a 2 days journey. 18th, and arriving on the 19th. So we're further told in that chapter that in verse 17, the Egyptians were given a severe beating, and the battle was sore upon them. And all the Egyptians fled before the children of Israel, for many of them perished by the hand of Israel that day. It would have been on the 19th day when they had arrived, and they had refused to go back. After the 19th day, the nobles of Pharaoh went back to Egypt and told Pharaoh what had happened, and the Lord strengthened the hearts of all the Egyptians to pursue the Israelites, for the Lord desired to overthrow the Egyptians in the Red Sea. Remember, it's a 2-day journey, 20th to 21st they did this, and they went out then to pursue the Israelites. And so another 2 days journey would now bring us to the 23rd day of the first month. And so we're told that on that night of the 23rd, that in Exodus 14:21-22, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So this was the timing of the parting of the Red Sea on that 23rd night, when the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea also. In Exodus 14:26-27, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, and the waters may come back upon the Egyptians on their chariots and on their horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and when the morning appeared, the sea returned to its full depth with the Egyptians which had fled into it. So this all would correspond with April 13th, 2019, and that night, and on the 23rd day of the first month on the Enochian calendar, on that night. So Sister Sherry has said, the Bible codes reveal that when one group is going up, their group is coming down. That's how closely aligned in time it happens. That's what it looks like. One's going up, one's coming down. So do you see how this could be such a neat correlation of the past meeting with the present, in that this could actually be the timing of when Revelation 6:13 says, "And the stars of heaven fell to the earth, even as a fig casts her untimely figs when it's shaken of a mighty wind." That could be them coming down. And then with Revelation 6:14 saying, "And the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together," that almost sounds like the description of when Moses parted the sea. The sky's parting in this scenario of the sixth seal, and the Red Sea was parting in the other scenario. Now, some people think that they crossed the Red Sea on the 15th day of the second month because of Exodus 16:1-3. That is actually the time of when they left Elim and camped by the Red Sea, and then they went on to the Desert of Sin. But in all reality, they were around the Red Sea at two different times. Now, as you can see, the Red Sea is very large, so just because one day it says they were at one section of the Red Sea doesn't mean that is necessarily when they crossed and the Egyptians had followed. So Pi Hahiroth is where the Egyptians met up with the Israelites, and basically in that area is where they crossed the Red Sea. And once again, that crossing was done on the 23rd day of the first month. So in closing, I just wanted to emphasize to look up, for your redemption draweth nigh, Luke 21:28. And say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look up on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. John 4:35. And why are these fields white from the harvest? Because they are the armies of heaven. Revelation 19:8 and 14. It was given to her fine linen for the righteous, and the armies were dressed in fine linen, white and clean. I can't wait to ride right behind Yahushua.